Welcome to the Global Peace Film Festival Lives Online Conversation 2021 Festival Edition. Please join me, Kelly Devine, the Artistic Director, and Nina Strike, the Executive Director, in conversation with Hille Norden, the director and filmmaker behind Soul Settlement, a film you can see both in part of our in-person screenings and as part of our online streaming screenings section. The in-person screenings will be held at the Winter Park Library beginning September 21st through the 26th, and the streaming opportunity begins September 27th through October the 3rd. All the scheduling, description, and other upcoming event information and details can be found at the Global Peace Film Festival website, peacefilmfest.org. And now, join us in welcoming Hille.
Good morning, afternoon, Hille. You're in Germany, so our time difference is quite a lot, is 6 hours, I think. Anyway, let's start by, please tell us about the film.
Yeah, moin moin, I'm Hille Norden, I'm from the north of Germany, and I'm very proud that I can present my movie Soul Settlement at your beautiful festival. It is a documentary, 97 minutes long, and it is the story of the family of Saher and his wife and his two sons, Milad and Zenaldin, who are from Syria. And Saher had to leave Syria in 2015. That was a decision he took overnight. He had to flee, very spontaneous, if you want to say so, and came after quite a long trip to Germany. And his plan, and obviously his hope and wish, was to bring his family as soon as possible to Germany. And they all thought it would be probably a matter of like maybe 2 to 3, maybe 4 months. But as that was a time where the so-called refugee wave hit Germany, we stopped taking in the families of the refugees. So Saher ended up waiting for his family for about 4 years and didn't see his sons and his wife, obviously, who were still trapped in the war. And yes, they grew up 4 years without their father, and the wife had to get the kids through the war by herself alone. And so I met Saher in that time of waiting. And actually, we all thought that probably his family will never come, actually. And that was a very hard time for all of us, me and my family, and, you know, as we're friends of Saher. But then actually the fortunate news arrived that he would eventually be able to take his family to Germany, and that very soon. And so I started filming them around that period. And joined in for their first year that they spent together in Germany, and documented how they kind of became familiar to each other again, and how they started building up a life in Germany after 4 years of separation, and also how they actually started not to only integrate into my home country, but also how they had to learn to integrate the experience of war into their family life, as they all have changed in those 4 years in different ways. And so they actually, even if they missed each other so much, had to kind of learn to live together again inside of a foreign country where none of them actually kind of chose to live, as they never wanted to leave their home country in the first place.
You really do capture the family in a very intimate way. And can you explain, you mentioned in your description of the film that you're friends with them, so that rapport was already established. But did anything change when you decided to film them in terms of your rapport or your approach?
Well, so I met Saher because he took asylum in the church that my family and I go to. And I wasn't living at home anymore at that time where he moved in. But my mother took him in as, I don't know, since I'm 12 or something, we always have had an open room and an open house for people from all over the world. So mostly we actually hosted refugees from maybe Afghanistan, Eritrea, or like Syria. A lot of Syrians actually were our guests. And Sahir probably stayed with my mother, I think about 6 to 8 months. So that's why I knew him, and why also his story kind of was already my business as a private person. And I felt this urge to kind of start filming him when the arrival of his family was kind of at the doorstep, because I felt like this is probably going to be a very impressive story that is that should be heard and should be seen by people. And if I don't film, nobody will probably film it. So I felt it was my responsibility. The only problem I had was that I had no clue whatsoever how to actually handle a camera, because I'm a director and a writer. And actually, by some fortunate coincidences, I just got my hands on a little camera and I took it to my home city, because I had like some free time, and I thought, I don't know, I'm going to go and film an apple tree and maybe some kids on the street. I know, like, you know, kind of getting some experiences and something. And that was the moment where I arrived, and Sarah was like, oh my God, my family's going to come. And I was like, yeah, let me just figure out where to start putting this on that thing. And then I start filming, I guess. So you will also see when you watch the movie that the handling of the camera got more secure over time. And as the family basically learned to speak German, I started to learn how to use a camera. And it was most certainly not my idea to be like the camera woman for the entire time of the shooting. First of all, I started filming because I felt until I get the funding, I can't pay somebody, so I need to record it some way, and then I will employ a cameraman or camera woman. But then I figured that actually what probably makes the story so intimate and unique in the way I tell it is that it was only me. Like, I did the entire shooting myself, and that made me able to really become a part of this very sensitive integration process. And yes, it's true that I'm friends with Zahir, and I knew him before his family came, but that was also different mode in which Sarah was living, as he is very well integrated. He speaks fluent German. He was working as a counselor for my city when his family arrived, and he actually became pretty much German in the time his family wasn't here. So obviously Sarah had to kind of slip back into his Syrian culture a little bit more when his family came. And I didn't know his wife. I didn't know their kids, and they don't speak English nor German. So I had to establish a whole entire new contact with 3 people that were like probably in the most hard days of their life when I met them, and they had really different like worries than how to be part of a documentary. Obviously, I contacted them before they arrived through Sai and asked if it was okay if I was shooting, and they were very open to it. But it took us probably about half a year until we could kind of have a little conversation. And I also, during the shooting process, decided against working with a translator, which was very helpful, because that meant that what they really wanted to share with me and what they wanted me to know, they had to explain in some sort of way. And they always found a way, which makes it very tense when they share their stories. And which also relaxed me as a filmmaker a lot, because you don't want to somehow steal the story of people, lure them to talk, like lure them into talking, to kind of open up their heart in a cringy way, and then you show the movie publicly, and you actually invaded their privacy, and everybody feels ashamed because you tricked them into talking. That is something that I'm always very careful with, and in that way, I was very secure that once they said something, they felt fine with it, and they really wanted it to go out there. So that was the very intense part about the shooting process, being all alone, and spending weeks partly with that family, living at their place without actually speaking the same language.
I think anyone who is fortunate enough to watch your film will see how your ethical approach ended up with, at least for me, one of the most, to use your word, sensitive, but also delicate and nuanced portraits of a family dealing with the vicissitudes of life, the difficulties that life throws at all of us. So I want to commend you for that. And can you speak a bit about, what's lovely about your film is that it doesn't wear on its sleeve what viewers should take away from it, but there is a potential for this very sensitive, nuanced family portrait to have importance to people and resonate with people beyond their story. And could you speak to, what you learned as you were putting this story together?
Well, yeah, I guess like it probably has a lot to do with how I understand what my job as a filmmaker is, and that is basically to choose a topic which is which already means that I find something in this world and then define what this topic contains, and what is excluded. And then I try to understand it in all its complexity and diversity in all its shades. And I try to break it down in a way that it's consumable for the viewer within 90 minutes or so, without actually taking away the idea of the diversity and complexity. And I think like the underlying message of all the things I'm doing is it's not that simple, right? So obviously, I am from a pro-integration, pro-asylum background in Germany, and it's the same in every wealthy country. We have this huge discussion within the society whether we should be pro or against asylum. And in my eyes, they developed a tendency to be like, if you're pro-asylum and you're against, the more right-wing approach, you kind of always push how big a chance integration is for the society, and that integration is something, great, and there's no doubt about how great that all is. And, and I love basically the process of being one world and, crossing cultures and having a multicultural dialogues. That is indeed a great opportunity. But what I also try to state in that movie is that integration is not a simple task. It is very, very, very hard to integrate somebody. And there are some limits to it that depend very much on the person that tries to integrate. Some people have it easier than others. And that doesn't mean that we should not try and work our hardest, as I also feel this is a civil duty to allow people to become part of our society. But you should never underestimate how hard it is to actually be in a place and build up a new life in a situation that you never wanted to have in the first place. And that somehow, like once people are here, that maybe then when they had to leave their country, chose Germany as the best country to be in, that still doesn't mean that they're ever going to be happy to be with us. They may be gonna be okay. And then I think in this portrait that I shot, I show, different outcome possibilities, but I also show like the hardship of what it means to by force be somewhere else. And I think the point that impressed me the most, like on the personal level, is obviously I was following this family throughout a year, which is damn long time to be on somebody's tail. I guess I think that's how you say it, and like stick to somebody. It's very long, and they went through different phases. Sometimes it was better and sometimes it was harder. And I think after half a year of shooting or something, I think they felt a little bit intimidated because they were, especially her. I felt like she didn't feel so comfortable because maybe she was afraid she would like look too bad or too sick or too sad or something. I was like, don't you worry, people, I've got your back. I would be shooting you until, sun is shining in your life again. And, we all know at one point things will be good again. And I'll stick around till that. It's going to be a movie with a happy ending because, I'm doing a movie. I want to have a happy ending. And Saya looked at me and was like, that's bullshit. Because things are never going to be good. There's like no chance of things being good again. Like they might be good, and like life might be better at one point, but that is not the old good. It's a new good, and we can hope there will be a new good for us, a new kind of sense of nice living. But what is broken will remain fucking broken forever, you know. And I try to talk him out of that. But actually, and I think that that follows me every day now, because I find it such a great approach to life, is we have this attitude, especially in Germany, if you experience something hard, that you be like, oh yeah, you know, everything is good for something, you know, like you eat shit and you will learn something from that. And then one day you'll be there and say, yeah, you know, I had to eat shit and it was great for my experience in life. And I think that that is not true. You know, sometimes you just have to acknowledge that things that happen to you are unfair, they're unjust, they're bad, and they break you and they change you and your personality. And the only thing that you can do is then to understand what you do of the rest that remain from you. And I was deeply impressed to see, and that is also part of all the other projects I work in, is what you do when your personality and your worldview and your like the view of life in general and the trust relationship you have with this world is changed against your will, right? You know, if you feel like you want to improve yourself, you go do therapy, or you read some books, or maybe you watch movies and you change and you feel happy about that change. But it might be that somebody comes to you and tortures you or drives you out of your home, and that changes you a lot. And then you end up having a new personality in some parts. And you'd be like, I don't know who's that person. I don't know if I like that person. I don't want to be that person. I used to be cheerful. Now I'm not. I hate that. I don't want to be like this, but you still are. And so you have to find within that changed world and a new in a change as a changed person, a new self-confidence and a new way to continue living your life in a cheerful way. And that is possible. It is always possible. But that is, I guess, the hard part. And that is actually what integration is, I feel. Integrating how your view of the world changed into your life.
Well, listening to your discussion makes me reflect on the mission of Global Peace Film Festival and our definition of peace.
Yeah.
Our definition is not a simplistic one, just merely the absence of war or the absence of any kind of conflict, but rather, and what really attracted me to your film is the complexity and the idea that peace is not this absence of conflict, but it is a way of facing conflict. It's a way of processing conflict. And acknowledging it and being able to find a life that, and I think you bring up a very good point, that's not necessarily untouched or that's not necessarily untouched by conflict, but one that still tries to strive for dignity and mutual respect. And so, you know, that was why I was so attracted to your film, because of the nuance and complexities that you bring to this. It too often these kinds of stories can be presented in an overly simplistic way, and you don't do that at all.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. That's kind of what I try to point out when I say integration is not that easy, but it's still very rewarding to try. And I think, you know, like trying to heal somebody or trying to give somebody a new home is already the rewarding part, actually, that work, much rather than the result. And I think, especially in Germany, we have this mentality of, okay, so something got broken, maybe both, because, you know, First or Second World War. Let's fix that. Sorry. Let me fix you. And you can't fix all the things, but you can always create something new. And that's why I do still believe that Soul Settlement is actually, in the end, a very hopeful movie, because that is the beauty about humanity. You actually, you know, like we have this idea of that people can be broken, if it is by war, if it is by murder, if it is by rape. I'm also currently working on a movie that tackles sexual abuse, or rather the like, you know, what follows after you got sexually abused. And there's the same phenomena. You'd be like, okay, you know, that person got broken, and I try to I try to distance myself from that, because I feel that disables people from continuing actually to live a life. You get changed through what happens to you. And you might also get severely hurt, but you actually don't break a person until they are dead, because then life is over. And so whatever happens to you, I feel, and I say that in the face of all the things I saw and listened to, life is actually always worthwhile, and it is always worth living. And you need to find some peace with the pain that you carry, as life can also be very hard. And you need to accept that the world might change you. You might also be very angry upon that, but that doesn't make life in any sense less attractive. But that is easier said than felt. And I find that this family found a way to find beauty in life again. And that is actually why I would also encourage people to seek contact with asylum seekers, because I do know that sometimes you feel those people come, heavily burdened by the horrors of war, and you're afraid that you can't handle the pain, that you won't understand them. But actually seeing how they learn to handle that, how they actually manage their pain, the homesickness, the desperation and the worries, and actually to become a part of that is very rewarding, and actually gives you a sense, as ironic as that sounds, of the beauty of life, to see how people continue living and finding happiness. And especially when you are one of the reasons why they actually are happy. That's very rewarding.
That is such an important point, and so important for the people watching this to take into their own lives, because we all, we all know immigrants in our communities who are facing difficulties, and to really reach out to them is so important. So how can our audiences support this film and your work? And when you and I spoke a couple of weeks ago, you told me about some fascinating new projects that you have, and anything that you can share about that.
Well, obviously you support my movie if you watch it and you recommend it to friends that also watch it. That makes me happy. Because like, this movie was fun, and it's still a very low budget project, and I actually pretty much just did it for you watching it and for you discussing over it. So I would actually like to say something about the process of integration within a society, because I was fortunate that I kind of grew up in a family where it is a very normal part of life to be part of this ongoing integration. As I said, when I grew up, it was mainly Afghanistan, Afghanish people that were somehow around our house, and then it turned over to be mostly Syrian, and now probably we will have Afghans again. It's so sad. Yes. So somehow I never had to overcome some shyness, but I do still have this, sometimes I do actually kind of want to help, and then I don't know how to do this, and then I feel a little bit shy because other cultures and foreign languages, and then I kind of donate money or something that I feel better in my heart, because I don't really know what to do. And it always feels like if you go into integration work, you kind of take on that huge responsibility, and maybe people that become emotionally dependent on you, and that you kind of can't leave anymore. And if you don't like them, what do you do? Or if there's a cultural difference that you don't understand. And I do know all the reasons why it is so hard to get in touch with people that need your help. You see it and you don't want to, because you don't actually know what's going to happen. And I can only encourage you that only trying actually already is a huge benefit to people. And that sometimes that one cup of coffee that you drink with somebody, that one time where you invite somebody to your home, or if you just have a walk with somebody, is actually already a huge turnover in or it can be a huge turning point. Because I've been also living abroad, and I do know this solitude and this loneliness and the sense of isolation. And as soon as you actually see that people can react to you in a person-to-person interaction, where you kind of are not the refugee or the foreigner, but just a human that tries to get along and hopes for some kindness, that is already very helpful. So if you kind of can people just give them like the general sense of being welcome wherever they are, they're probably going to do most of the work by themselves, because they feel like they are wanted where they want to integrate in. It's very hard to integrate if you have the infrastructure for that. You know, you can do all the language courses and stuff, but you feel like the society really doesn't want to have you. Then it's harder than if you don't have infrastructure but welcoming people. That is yeah, but it is I think integration is the civil duty, and it takes so much time, because you have to integrate every person. You know, we all have to work on that. Yes, that is actually the indirect support for my movie. Please overcome your shyness. And also, I feel it's important to, you know, we have this tendency to say, oh, we don't want to think in stereotypical senses, you know, right? Like we like to be like trying to avoid to have stereotypes about other humans. And I think that stereotypes are actually something very important, because somehow you have to start somewhere. You know, like if you meet a 6-year-old kid and you know this kid is 6, you kind of have an idea of what a kid is capable of doing in that age and what it is not. And that is very good as a stereotype, because you don't want to overload it with burdens, but you maybe also don't want to underestimate it. But then when you interact with that kid, it is very natural that you kind of see what the kid as an individual is capable of. So you might say you overestimated it or underestimated it, and you're open and very free for surprises, and that's nice. And I feel that is actually the same approach we should have with other cultures. So it is okay if you have some stereotypes about what it means to be a Syrian or a German. And that is also a very good starting point to get in touch with other people, as long as you kind of, be open for being surprised once again, or to be confirmed. It's also okay to be confirmed in a stereotype. But take some stereotypes as a starting point and then check them with each individual that you meet. That's kind of how I do it. So, and yeah, then the other projects I'm doing, well, I guess you have to wait until they're done, because in most cases that will be like 2 to 3, maybe sometimes to 4 years. Actually, I started working merely on fiction projects right now. I'm writing screenplays in a moment. And please remember my name. And if you see that showing up somewhere, then make sure to watch my movie. That's actually all you can do for me right now.
Well, wonderful, Hille. We will definitely keep track of your new projects. We love to, through our Global Peace Film Festival social media channels, to update our audiences about our alumni filmmakers. So we will definitely be sure to carry updates on your work to them through those channels. So thank you for that. And if you'd like to have more information or a dialogue with Hille, she's been very generous in sharing her email, which is hille@norden.film. And you can see the address there on the card. And also, please be sure to go to peacefilmfest.org so that you can find all the information about the screening time for our in-person screening of the film, as well as catching up with the film and encouraging all your friends to catch up with the film during the virtual screening week beginning September 27th through October 3rd. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you at the next Glow.